Hey everyone, this is Will from Beijing, China, and welcome to this brand new and exciting episode of The Missing Piece. For years that we believe this bilateral relations between China and African nations and should not be or will never be underestimated. If you follow our show that previously we talk about some of the unique countries in Africa, for example, Rwanda, Nigeria, and many more. However, very seldom we get the chance to hear this relationship between China and another unique but interesting country called Zimbabwe, which is also strategically located in Africa. Over the years that we know under the Belt and Road Initiative, that China is actively engaging not only this domestic infrastructure project, but also we're helping many African nations to boost the economic growth. And the purpose, it's very simple, to make the message clear and let the African friends and to realize that China is always on your side. However, to our viewers and audience that we don't get a chance to understand the full scope of the story. So that's why today it's my great honor to invite a distinguished guest and from this country, Zimbabwe, to share with us how this relationship has been doing and where this relationship is heading for the coming new year. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our special guest. And Eric, welcome to the show. Eric, welcome to The Missing Piece.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation.
No problem. The pleasure is all mine. Now let's get started. Eric, again, as I mentioned before, very seldom we don't get the chance to hear about this country. Now, before we get to that question, could you please briefly introduce yourself and what brought you to China at the first place?
Okay. My name is Tungamirai Eric Mpola, and my Chinese name is Milai. I'm from the Republic of Zimbabwe, and which is located in the southern part of Africa. And actually, what brought me here, of course, I came here to actually do my studies. I'm studying masters in global governance and international affairs at Zhejiang University. And before I also did, I also had a bachelor in Zhejiang University of Science and Technology, which was a bachelor in applied physics. So after finishing my bachelor, I then changed to international affairs and global governance. But actually, what actually attracted me the most to actually apply to come and study in China, I think it was most of a bit of an impression that I had about China before when I was doing my high school. I always been following in terms of the education exchanges that exist between Zimbabwe and China. And I thought if I was going to study abroad, maybe China would be the best of my choice, because I had a couple of my friends who were also studying here in China. So I had communicated with them before, and fortunately enough, I also came across an agent, and this agent actually was doing, consultancy services and introduced to me that I also had opportunities for me to apply to go and start in China. So I did apply. That was just after I got my results from my high school after finishing my A-level. So that's what happened, and I found myself here in China. And so far, I think I've enjoyed the journey, although it's not easy, because when I just came to China, I had a lot of challenges in terms of cultural shocks. It's always difficult to cope up with that. You have different languages, so language barriers. You also have cultural differences, and when you're trying to blend into the society, to immerse into the society, you cannot integrate into this society because of those challenges. So it has been quite challenging for me, but I really enjoyed the process, because with all these past years.
It's so interesting that, Eric, that you mentioned when you came to China. I know that based on the brief description that you mentioned couple things. Not only that the language was the barrier, but also the culture shock. And I believe that being a student, that you live in China for many years, despite everything you just said, I still want to go back to the question is, what are some of the most impressive elements about China that you found? And not just the Chinese food and not just the Chinese language. There must be something so personal or something so unique that is attractive to you as a student from Zimbabwe.
All right. I think what is more attractive, what I found most impressive, is the balance that China managed to achieve in terms of balancing development and also, you know, the preserving nature. Because I'm based in Hangzhou, so I could feel how beautiful the city is in terms of the natural landscape. Because, you know, I relate to that because Zimbabwe also boasts of you know, a very rich natural landscape. We have very, you know, beautiful vegetation and all that. So after coming here with all the digitalization that has been going, with all the modernization, I think you can still see that although there has been a lot of development, but the city tried by all means to maintain, you know, that natural aspect of it, which is we did a lot in terms of trying to prevent climate change. So this kind of balance in terms of development and preservation of the natural landscape, I think it's one of the most impressive things that I've seen here. And also in terms of how because I'm based in Hangzhou, right, and I'm someone who really likes exploring things. I've been to many places in China and always try to compare and contrast. You would go to the northwestern part, maybe you can see some areas that might be, you know, still developing, some areas that just got out of the poverty recently. And you can see that there are a lot of differences between the coastal area of China and the inland. But what is more impressive in the area that I'm currently based in, which is Zhejiang province, is that the income gap in terms of you know, for those people who are in the city and rural areas is very small, which is something that is quite impressive. And having this kind of a balance where you have a small income gap, you know, between the those who are staying in the urban areas and the rural areas, I think it's pretty much interesting, impressive for everyone who think about it. But of course, there are some areas in China that still have a very big income gap, and they're struggling to actually try to chase the goal of common prosperity. So in Hangzhou, in Zhejiang, I've actually seen quite many interesting things, and I think this a very small income gap between the rural and the urban is one of them.
But speaking of Zimbabwe, it's actually one of the countries that most people, again, for our listeners and viewers, that we don't get the chance to know a lot. It's not because we intentionally ignore this country, but also because the reason that it's seen as a hidden treasure in this African continent. So from your perspective, how would you describe this country, that your home country today, in terms of economic growth? And the second part is, how would you describe the younger generations in Zimbabwe today? Go ahead, Eric.
Well, although Zimbabwe has experienced some economic instabilities before, and especially during the pandemic period, I think we will witness a stable rise in the following period. You know, the 2021 Southern Africa Outlook report by the Africa Development Bank estimated that the Zimbabwean economy would experience significant recovery by the end of this year. And so far, there has been improved vaccine uptake in the country, and some economic experts have actually anticipated that if vaccination programs are successfully implemented, we would project significant economic growth, not forgetting that, tourism is also a very important aspect of the Zimbabwean economy. So I would give you an example of a tourist resort in Zimbabwe, the Victoria Falls, which has become Southern Africa's first city to achieve herd immunity in April this year.
Wow.
With more than 77% of its residents, vaccinated, which led to the reopening of the tourism industry. That would be important for our economic growth. And in terms of food security, we also have experienced a bumper harvest in the agricultural sector this year. And in 2018, Zimbabwe has also adopted the Vision 2030, which seeks to see and to create an upper middle income economy by 2030. And hopefully, if everything goes well, I think we'll be at another level in terms of poverty alleviation and all other aspects of actually trying to ensure that the economic development is fostered. So, as for the second question, when you asked about the youth, I think just like many other countries in Africa, you might be aware that the whole African country, the whole African continent actually boasts of a very young population. So we would see that. I think in the following years, we are going to try. African countries are going to try to actually leverage and actually to make utilizing the demographic dividend, whereby the youth would play a very significant role. Because when you talk about the youth, I think they are one of those key areas of focus for many economies right now in Africa, because they are the active population. So there are a lot of resources, a lot of investment in education to make sure that youth development is achieved. There is a lot of investment that is ongoing into entrepreneurship and innovation. Right, and to make sure that to make use of the young population, and also I also represent the youth population. So I'm here right now in China studying. So that means at the end, I must try by all means also to go back home and actually make some contributions, because by myself coming here, I have also accumulated some knowledge that I can export back home. So I think the Zimbabwean young population, it actually is the future of the economic development and the prosperity of the country, and also the continent, the whole African continent at large. And I think basically that's it. And of course, when we take a look at African continent at large, you would see that the African Union, in its agenda, AU Agenda 2063, has actually highlighted the youth as one of the most important goals that would require attention in the upcoming years. So there is a lot that will be happening in the future in terms of trying to make sure that the young generation is educated through vocational training, through tertiary education and many other aspects, and also the younger generation is emancipated and to achieve the Africa we want. So I think basically that's all I can say about the young generation in African continent and in Zimbabwe specifically.
Thank you, Eric, because I am very glad that you are able to mention the word entrepreneurship. And we know that not only that entrepreneurship, it's such a buzzword that in your home country and perhaps across the world, especially in China, and again, you live in China for many years, then you know that statistically speaking, there are 1.4 billion Chinese people. Now, out of 1.4 billion Chinese people, around 400 million people were counted as younger generations. And based on the observation that in this past decades, either before the pandemic or today, more and more young people, especially the millennials, the Generation Z, they are more likely to become entrepreneurs. Now, with that said, a lot of times that people tend to misunderstanding this economic partnership between African nations and China. For example, some countries in this Western hemisphere, they tend to say that China is laying this what we called maybe a debt trap, or perhaps a drawback for African nations to believe that the rise of China, it's actually just a mere imagination. So from your perspective, what is the best way to understand this relationship or this economic exchange between China and African nations? Excuse me. Is it actually is going to work, or it's only a mere imagination between those two partnership?
I understand that Africa is currently actually, China is actually currently Africa's largest trading partner, and Africa is a fast-growing market for the Chinese products. And we have been getting good quality products at affordable prices from China. And African countries also export a lot to China, especially unprocessed and processed or value-added agricultural produce. And I'm sure you must be aware of the Ethiopian coffee, South African wine, Ugandan dried fruits. So from that kind of perspective, I think you would understand that this is a win-win cooperation. It's a common development. That is one of the core aspects of China-Africa economic relations. I think recently in the just ended FOCAC ministerial meeting, a lot has been highlighted as to some of the projects that China is going to, implement to actually make sure that both the sides would, work together in building even more stronger economic ties. When we take a look at that, I think the most important thing is that the economic relations and economic bilateral cooperation between China and the 54 African countries is mainly based on mutual respect, right? And actually, what you see, as you were just saying, that some other regions and perhaps the Western Hemisphere, that they would maybe have some misunderstandings here and there about the state of China-Africa economic cooperations. I think, there is a lot that is ongoing, and of course, maybe you might also find some, maybe unpleasant things, in African countries in terms of some small enterprises, some Chinese small enterprises that will be operating there. But I think that is just a small percentage. But when we take a look at a broader perspective, I think those Chinese enterprises that are operating in Africa has contributed a lot in terms of providing employment for the local population, employment creation, right? And we also have, infrastructure development. And when they went there, you must understand that it is the market forces that are actually playing a greater role here, that the African market is attractive on its own. There is a document that was published, I think this year, by the China-Africa Business Council, that actually highlighted that, one of the things that I didn't actually know before, that the private sector itself plays a very significant role in terms of the economic cooperation between China and African countries. So you will see that there is a lot that will be happening, and I think we will see fast development in the future in terms of both the the exports from China to Africa and also the exports from Africa to China. I think recently during the FOCAC ministerial meeting, it was highlighted that China would also want to promote the importation of African products. So I think that's a very good initiative, and we will be looking forward to that. You know, for us as the youths, I think we can also make a very positive contribution. And in all aspects, as you just mentioned, that entrepreneurship actually now plays a very significant role. So we can see how we can do. We have a lot of African young entrepreneurs who are based in China. Some of them who are doing e-commerce, importing African products to China. Same applies to the African countries. We have a lot of Chinese who are there. So I think there is a lot that would happen in the future, be it from, you know, government to government, bilateral economic relations. This is the public sector, and also, you know, the private sector as well. So I think there's a lot that we can actually you know, anticipate.